Let me just message. Yep. There we go. I think this is streaming. I think we're live. We might be like, I'm streaming from my laptop, so like the video might be sus. I'm not sure, but that's fine.
Your laptop camera?
No, it's from my webcam, but like the laptop is like streaming and recording the audio, and there's a webcam, and like I have 100,000 tabs open. So I just like the processor might be a bit sad right now. I'm not sure. It might be feeling.
I'm sure it's fine.
I trust you. I believe in my laptop. I think it can handle it, but I do think that the video might stutter a little bit. But that's okay. We'll get through.
Do the intro.
Yeah.
Everyone's waiting.
Everyone's waiting. Okay.
Oh, wait, we're waiting for Titus so he can hear us, huh?
Oh, that's true. Although, or anyone actually, if anyone says they can hear us, that's all. Oh, hi.
Hey, look, someone says hi.
Lunaslav says hi. I'm guessing that they can hear us. Yes?
Hello.
Hello. Okay, here we go. We got the waves. Hopefully the volume levels are decent. Okay, good. All right. There we go. There we have it. Hello and welcome to the NativShark Podcast. I am your host, Caleb, brought to you as always with co-host Nicholas. Hey. It's been a hot minute, sir. Oh, also, we're sponsored by the NativShark platform, which is our own platform, and et cetera. Come get a 7-day free trial and use that to learn Japanese because it's the best way to do that.
Yeah, we inject Japanese into your brainstem while you sleep.
Yes. All you have to do is show up and click study now. And then once you've done that, when you're sleeping, Japanese is injected directly into the brainstem. And then
it might feel like you're not learning anything while you study, but that's because you have to wait until we inject the Japanese-ness.
Yes. And then it usually takes about like, I don't know, a couple months to start taking effect. But then after that, I'd say like give it like 3 to 4 months of consistent use. And then after that, it starts to take effect. And then you're like, huh, I'm pretty good at Japanese all of a sudden. How did that happen? And we tell you it's because you stayed consistent, but actually it's the injections. Yep. Now you know the secret to how NativShark works.
Yeah.
All right. Enough shenanigans. It's been like what, a month? Right?
It has been like a month. Hey, look, Luna Slave just said, I need to get back on track with study. Derailed so bad at the moment. And that is basically the theme of what we're talking about, because we need to get back on track with our podcast.
Exactly. Yes.
And then for me, for learning something like Korean, I don't know if it's get back on track. I just need to get on track in the first place because I've never been on the track for it.
Yeah, that's slightly different. You know, like getting on track in the first place is a little bit different of a process than getting back on track. These are two different things. It's easier to get back on track with something than it is to start and stick to something totally new, I think. If you're
it's really start something new. Sticking to it is hard. Like usually when you want to learn something new, you get really excited about it and study a bunch, and
right.
At least I do, and then I stop.
Yeah. Easy to start.
Because I found some other shiny butterfly across the room or something.
Yes. Easy to start, I think, but challenging to commit to. Whereas if you had a decent system and you fell off the track, I feel like it's easier to get back in because you just have to like restart what already exists rather than rebuild. Like you don't have to convince yourself again.
You don't have to start over, I guess. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Starting over is not cool. It's not fun. I did that a bunch with Japanese.
Man, I used to think that I needed to start over all the time with Japanese as well. I would get off track for like a couple months and then I'd be like, well, everything I ever did before was useless. I might as well start completely from zero once again.
Yeah. Well, just also the feeling when you're learning is that you expect it to be this perfect line going diagonally up, like your skill level just goes up. But the feeling is a lot more like a roller coaster that gradually goes up. Like in that it goes like up and down and up and down, up
Mm.
and down. And it is getting higher, but the level today might feel lower than the level you were at a couple of days ago. Even if that's not the case, it often feels like that.
It's um it's like the stock market. That's what it looks like. It looks
Yeah,
like
yeah, it is.
it looks
Just
like the stock market.
it's the S&P 500 of the last 50 years. That's how
Yes.
it feels to learn Japanese.
Yeah. Cuz it there are moments wherein you're at an all-time high and then it will go down again and then you'll be like, "Oh no, I lost progress." But you forget that you're actually still higher than where you were when you started. And
Yeah.
you'll make that ground back again. Like it's never actually lost as long as you stay consistent, much like investing in the S&P
Yeah, don't
500 over the
sell
past
off your
50 years.
portfolio just because the price is low. Panic selling is the worst thing you can do, right?
Yes. That would be like completely restarting or quitting would be panic selling.
Yeah.
Um, Not effective.
Yeah. It's hard to be consistent into like when your feelings are telling you one thing, and I guess even if reality is not even telling you the other thing, you don't even know about it sometimes. I
Yeah.
remember quite legitimately thinking that I wasn't getting better at times.
Hmm.
And how would you know that you are in fact getting better unless you had experienced it, experienced the actual long-term growth of skill from showing up repeatedly?
Just waving to the follow. Welcome, welcome.
All right, so Caleb, why did we miss a whole month of this podcast?
Okay, it's a good question. Um, because well, you had a baby, and we made the podcast a lesser priority towards other things in life that we were doing, basically, because we didn't want to do it on a different day than Wednesday, so we chose that. And
Yeah.
when Wednesday would come up and you didn't have a babysitter or something else for the morning time, then we didn't do the podcast for that. And then we also didn't do it because I got a wisdom tooth pulled out the day before the podcast, for some reason expecting that it would be I'd be able to speak the next day at the podcast, and I couldn't. um, wait,
Yeah,
what
then
was?
I think it was the week after that the babysitter canceled.
Yeah,
Hmm?
you cut out for a second there. What was that? Say that again.
Oh. Oh, then I said, yeah, and I think the week after that is when the babysitter canceled last minute. And then that happened today too, which is why we're doing this podcast a few hours. Yeah, life does not happen the way that you expect it's going to happen. And because it takes so much time to, build up a podcast, this is just gonna happen. And I used to always make these, I would like do the calculations like, oh, I'm gonna learn 20 words a day. So, okay, so after 100 days, I'll know 2,000 words, which it goes on and on. And then it just doesn't happen that way. And it can be disappointing if you didn't expect it. Um, on the other hand, like it's not bad to have goals. See, that's cool.
Most certainly. And I know that everything you just said was recorded very well on your end, but on my end, I've been having choppy audio quality, so I could hear you, but it sounded like a robot. So I now have to deal with life not happening the way you expect it to happen, and figure out how to fix this audio situation. I'm not
Yeah,
entirely sure what's causing it. Hold on, let me close some things,
I
perhaps.
don't know. Might be your laptop.
I might actually just be choking on me, perhaps. It was working just fine.
Um,
Um, let me see here.
Let me copy. I feel
They said my
like
camera was
camera's
freezing.
freezing.
Oh, there's a possibility we might have to do this um not live. Finish recording not live, which would be sad. Let me see. What
What?
can I
I've done that. Feels weird.
I know we've never done that. It sounds so strange. What can I do? What thing is causing? Okay, I could try to leave. And then this video will be gone for a second. And then let's see here if I go like this. Okay. Okay, let's hear you again, Nico.
I am talking.
Yeah.
This is me using my voice that I have.
It's not it's not working. Oh no. Just as we wanted to talk about podcasts and not being consistent and doing it again, you have technical issues.
Well, we're doing the important thing, which is showing up.
I know, right? That's the important
You
bit.
know, it doesn't have to go the way you planned. As long as you showed up, you're good.
I could try going audio only. Let me
Yeah, there's me being an audio only guy.
hold on. Let me disable my own video. Okay, let's hear that.
I'm talking,
Yeah,
you're talking, we're
not
talking.
working. Yeah, still not working. Okay, I've got another trick up my sleeve. Another potential option. We could do this. We could do we could go we could do this one. And then we could go to here and could go here. And then I would need to change the audio source. Audio. This would need to be this one. All right. Say something again for me, fine sir. I could also just not hear anything now. Speakers. That should be this one. If I hard close this, if I do that, and then I set this to be, and then hmm. Still, still no sound. So now I can't hear, which likely
I'm not
means,
talking.
oh, I can hear now. Okay, there we go. All right,
Yeah, I was waiting and waiting.
it's no longer cutting out. I actually think that I might have fixed it.
Yeah.
Yes. Not only that, I think that I can return the video actually, because I think I figured out what the problem was.
Should I put my video back on then?
Let's see what happens if you do.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yo.
Oh, I need to undisable your video. There we go. And now let's go back to Streamlabs. And there we
Yo.
go. And hello. Oh my
Hello, hello,
God.
hello.
We made it through. We made it through. All right. Okay, stream. Are you still there? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear Nico?
So we pay extra for our light speed internet here at our apartment in Tokyo, and I just checked and I was getting 270 megabytes per second download and a whopping 2.5 upload.
Oh, shoot.
So
Well,
that could have something to do with it also.
rest assured it was not your end. It was my end. My audio driver was malfunctioning. So I had to disable it and then re-enable it and then change all of the inputs and outputs for how the audio was coming into the computer and how the audio was coming out of the computer, and then change how the stream was streaming, change the bit rate. But we good. Um,
Yeah,
basically,
sure you did, Caleb.
basically the processor was getting overloaded. I think I checked the monitoring and it was like using 100%. Um, so all right, I think we're good. Okay, let's get back on.
Sometimes life does not go how you expect.
Yes.
The end.
And you had asked me why we didn't record the podcast, and I had said because I had a tooth pulled out, and that threw me out for that day. And you had babysitter stuff happen, and then uh, last week I was packing, I think. So basically, 3 consecutive weeks in a row, something came up.
Yeah, so sorry.
So
But we're back.
how do you deal with that, sir? How do you deal with it?
I mean, the same way anyone else does is like you just have to show up after and when you like, and it's okay if you couldn't for a while. And then I think the detrimental part is that when you beat yourself up about the fact that you didn't do what you were planning to do,
Yes,
because it's such a waste of mental energy.
man.
And I've wasted a lot of that particular type of energy, so I try not to.
Going through what we have gone through together now, like recently in the past couple months, I now wonder why in the years prior I ever spent so much time beating myself up over such small things like falling off a consistent path of like studies, or like I used to be so hard on myself for breaking habits, but
Yeah.
now having the set of experiences that I've had recently, I'm at a loss for words as to why I was so hard on myself for breaking habits, because it seems so silly and that prevented me from actually succeeding at them for so long.
Yeah, well, I think there's a correlation between the lack of confidence that you're going to succeed and the amount that you beat yourself up about not doing what you set out to do.
Mm.
Like once I realized like, hey, I am gonna get as good at Japanese as I want to, and I'm not as good as I want to be yet, but I can see that I've actually made progress and like this is working. A lot of that anxiety sort of just disappeared. Whereas before that, I was always beating myself up because in the back of my head, I was thinking like, I'm never gonna learn it. It's never gonna work.
Mm.
What am I even doing in the first place? Like, stupid of me to even have the goal. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the difference is having a model in your mind set up for how you're going to deal with like progress failure, success, and not. So the first time, it's like you and me, we were just doing it for the sake of doing it or whatever. Maybe we had a goal, maybe we didn't, and like we weren't like really thinking about it. We were just kind of reacting. But then when it became like a proactive thing, for whatever reason, that switched to then building a model for no, I am consistent and I will see returns over the long term. Like that shift between having an intentional model and not, I think is what made that makes the difference, perhaps.
But yeah. And then yeah, now I just know like all the time I mention how I want to learn Korean and Thai in this podcast. Um, but it's not a priority for me right now. It's like I know that I'm not gonna like be better at either of them next month because it's not a priority. And you can't just say you're gonna make it a priority and also have a bunch of other priorities. Like let's say like Korean and Thai learning or Korean. Let's just pick one.
Yeah, yes.
Was my number one priority. If I have a list of like 10 priorities, I still don't think it's gonna get done because I'm still trying to do 10 things at once.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm pretty much aware that I'm not gonna make much progress on it right now because things like NativShark are a much bigger priority to me than studying the language. Um, or like having little babies all over the place at our house is also slightly higher priority than
Yeah.
me studying with.
Lots of time and such.
Yeah. But
Certainly.
so in the past, I would have been really hard on myself about the fact that I wasn't learning because it just didn't fit into my list of priorities. Whereas now I just know that at some point I will make it one of my very few priorities to study, and then I will make progress then. And I think in some ways, what we try to do with Native Shark is make it possible to learn something, even if it's not one of a very small number of priorities.
Right.
Because if we had Native Shark Korean, I probably would be learning Korean right now, even. Because
Yeah.
what do I have to do? I don't have to like try. I just show up and click study now and just see what it shows me.
Right. Instead, the what becomes the challenge, so to speak, is just continuing to show up,
Hmm.
which is like why we why we made it, right? That was the point. Make it remove all other barriers except for just showing up, and there you go. And yes, I definitely wish that more things were taught in this format, and we will get them at some point, I believe, and it won't be just us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I saw that Luna Slave, who was saying that they were trying to get back on track, also mentioned that they do this thing with having a touchstone, a piece of media they check back with periodically to see how much more they understand it over time.
Mm.
And I think that's a really cool thing to do. Definitely good. And it goes back to that idea of also what motivates you to study it and to learn it in the first place. Because if you do the thing that made you want to learn it often,
Yeah.
you're going to want to keep learning it. And then you're more likely to show up day
Mm.
in and day out.
I really like the idea of calling it a touchstone. I haven't thought of that before, but
Yeah, it's
it's
cool, huh?
that's cool
Yeah.
because like that's something that um, I mention in the community often of like how to have a sense of progress is have a piece of content or something that you come back to every like 4 to 6 months and see how much better you understand it this time than last time. But calling it a touchstone is cool. I like that. I also see in the YouTube chat, Jazz the Cat says, "This is totally off topic, but your program has helped my studies by far the most. Out of all the programs I've tried, I just wanted to say thank you." And I
Oh,
appreciate that.
sweet. Yeah, thank you.
Much thanks. I'm glad to hear that it has made a difference for you. We see Kangaroo in the Twitch chat saying, "My Touchstone is an old Japanese game. Every time I go back, I understand more and more, and it is an amazing feeling." 100%. One of the early ones for me was Pokemon Omega Ruby. No, sorry, Omega Sapphire. Um, because I remember I bought it within like on a Japanese 3DS within the first year of my studies, and like obviously I couldn't hardly understand anything because I didn't even have that good of a method to go with. I had studied not that much, but I was a bit I could understand, and just that little bit was kind of cool. And I was like, oh, someday this will make more sense. And then I remember like 2 years later, I had forgotten about it, and 2 years later I came back to it, and I could play the entire game. And I was like, hey, that's crazy. How did that happen?
I
But
used to watch Lord of the Rings in Japanese all the time.
really,
I don't know if I would say watch. I would put it on and then like go to sleep like every night for like a year. Like when
yeah.
I was living in Tokyo as a teacher, an English teacher.
Hmm.
And I did start to understand more and more of it, partly because I'd seen it so many times, but also just because like I was actively getting better at the language.
And then one day it made sense.
Yeah. Well, one day I have started like trying to talk like Gandalf like to my friends. Is what happened.
Oh, I see. I see how it is.
He just talks like an old man in the translation.
Yeah. I've have never seen Lord of the Rings in Japanese. That sounds.
You're missing out.
I feel like I am actually. It's one of my most favorite series, whether it's the books or I really enjoy the movies as well. But I've watched Harry Potter in Japanese. That was pretty fun. Now you got
Yeah, I
me
used to
wanting to watch.
do that when I was much worse at Japanese. I used to try to watch Harry Potter in Japanese. And I should try it again because I haven't in a long time, and I wonder if I would remember not understanding things.
Yeah. I think yeah, having those kind of things to look back on is pretty key.
Yeah. Side note, Japanese like voiceover dubs of English movies are easier to understand than native Japanese movies.
Oh yeah.
If you're a listener out there, yeah. So if you like a movie like Harry Potter in Japanese would be easier than some Japanese movie to understand.
What makes you say that?
They just are because they're translated from the English. So you don't get as many of like the very Japanese type phrases. Like there are a lot of things that you say in Japanese that you just wouldn't say in English.
Right.
That's not going to happen when it's a translation of English.
Yeah.
So I guess I should say the cultural context is not Japanese, so you get less of that language thrown at you when you watch dubs,
That makes sense. See, that's a good answer.
which can be good or bad depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's not the same as using like a native material, but it is something that allows you to practice and, flex your Japanese understanding, comprehension, ability, etc.
Yeah, it's like a quasi-native material.
Yeah, yeah. It's a pseudo native
Yeah,
material. I prefer my Greek roots over my Latin roots, sir.
whatever.
um I was thinking about it recently though, how we should we should get a nice community built native material list for people who have finished phase 1, because there's quite a few people now who've done that, and quite a few of them who have been like, "Oh, I've found that I can now understand X material pretty well," or etc. And like this is a commonly asked question. So we should like survey the community and have them put in their feedback so that we can build that into a resource to share with other people. Like post it on our blog or something. Send it in an
Yeah,
email.
that'll be awesome.
Make it as
I
a
can't
yeah.
I can't wait for the post phase two one. I really am
Oh my god,
curious
yeah.
what the students are going to be like that have finished phase two.
Bro, I don't even know. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be pretty wild.
You haven't really seen the latest Phase 2 lessons, have you?
No, I actually recently just started studying with NativShark for the first time.
Getting back on track.
Getting back on track. I did like the first 39 units like right after launch, and then I just haven't done it since the September, I guess. And then 4 days ago, I started studying again, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I think this time I can commit to it. So I'll catch up eventually in like 4 months or something.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I actually kind of like it because now there's been so much time from when we were originally building it to now that I'm using it now, and I actually often I appreciate it more because right after launch there was still all these things that I was like, oh, I'm mad at this and that, but we fixed so many of the initial issues that using NativShark now, I'm like, this is a pretty good experience actually. Like it's missing certain things that are annoying. Like I'm still really sad that there's no search, and I'm really sad that I can't easily add a sentence to my custom shadow loop album, or I can't like throw a sentence to my custom flashcard deck. But besides that,
Can't hover over words to see what the kanji are.
that's
That's, I think,
annoying.
a huge one.
That's annoying too. Or like I can't click on a grammar point and then see when that grammar point was taught. That annoys me as well. Um, okay, but besides those things, like I've kind of been surprised at how good of an experience it is. I was like, huh, it's pretty good. I'm having fun. Yeah, which is a
Your
good feeling.
Phase 2 lessons are where it's at. I think I love them.
Okay, actually, I have to just have something to say that I know is gonna annoy me, and I hope it's fixed by the time I get there in phase two. Is I've actually have found myself really enjoying the kanji example sentences. I never thought it. I
Uh,
never thought, but like I'm studying a new kanji, and then because like the interface is good now and I like it, and I scroll and I'm like, okay, here's the English representation, and most of the kanji are ones that I know. But every once in a while, I'll find one that it's like I had to think about it. So then I will actually know the English representation, right? Here's the thing, but I'll click the little I in the corner, and then I'll see an example sentence that it's in. Like, I don't care about the word. I just like seeing it in an example sentence. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I know this kanji and I know this word. And actually,
yeah,
that's really nice being able to see an example sentence that the kanji is in. And I know that's not in phase two yet, so
indeed.
that would be annoying if I was in phase two and didn't have that.
Yeah, it kind of just goes back to how we're divvying up our very limited resources at the moment.
Yeah,
So
I know.
all the content budget is going into training people to make units faster.
Yes.
Um, and then after that's happening, we'll add all the kanji. We'll probably add them all at once, to be honest, because we can do that.
Dude, honestly, by the time I get to phase two, so like 4.5 months from now, we probably will have that solved. Because
They'll
that's
probably
like
be
August.
starting to get uploaded then,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, the problem is solved, not that it's actually all
Oh
finished.
yeah.
But I think right now it's a problem that isn't solved yet. We know how to solve it, but we can't because resources are limited. So we're focusing on training new people for unit production to become faster, etc. But
Yeah.
I think
The
by
main reason
August,
it's a huge drain to add the kanji sentences right now is because um it's a multiplier of all the freelancers' work. It's not like we just hire one more person to write some sentences.
right?
It's every person in the content creation workflow has to work more hours to make the kanji sentences. Voice actors, editors, translators,
Yeah,
editors of translations, everyone has to do more for them. And it's like if we're gonna have everyone do more right now, it should be to make the core units come out faster,
yeah,
is the logic behind that.
definitely. And
But yeah, I
like,
really want all of those sentences in there too.
yeah,
For me personally, like I don't think they're that useful to have unless we have the add to custom flashcards button,
mm,
in which case I think they'd be wild to have all the kanji examples.
yeah. I mean, that
Because when
is
you see the
coming
one that
though.
you're really interested in, you could just add it to your custom flashcard deck with the click of a button.
So, yeah, that is on the development side. So like, I know when that's coming. So I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. Um, That's coming relatively soon, actually, which is cool. But anyway, I was delighted at how I was surprised with myself at how much fun I was having studying again with it, even though much of the content is stuff I'm familiar with. It's just a good feeling to be like, well, since I'm starting this and I'm being able to be consistent, I will have all of the possible gaps in my knowledge filled in over time. Like I read the lesson on automatopoeia last night, and I had like forgotten um two of the words that were in there entirely. But then after seeing the example sets, I was like, oh, well, of course that's what it means. It was Goku Goku and Zara
Oh
Zara,
yeah.
which like Goku Goku
Hmm.
makes lots of sense, and so does Zara Zara because it's like the opposite of Sara Sara. So there you go.
Makes sense. Just onomatopoeia never makes sense. You just gotta feel it.
Yeah, but that was a fun lesson.
I definitely I saw that there was an onomatopoeia lesson coming up soon in phase two. I look because Ray plans all the units and all the lessons. Um,
Yeah,
so every now and then I'm looking over her shoulder to see like what's coming up because I'm curious, like what are we gonna learn next?
yeah.
And there was an onomatopoeia one coming up kind of soon. Now I'm curious when it was. Ah, phase two, unit 40 is gonna have onomatopoeia frequently used when talking about food.
Mm,
Ooh, that's a good one.
that'll be a good one. There's a lot.
Specifically, it looks like the about the textures of food is what it is.
Dude, I was just this past weekend with my in-laws, and we were at a monja restaurant. So much onomatopoeia was used to describe the textures of food. Um,
Looks like we're gonna get saku saku, neba neba, toro toro, kari kari, mochi mochi, shua shua.
Kari kari, I hear that a lot.
What is going on with this language, man?
I don't know. Hmm.
Where are we at with development? Now that you mentioned that you know exactly where that is coming, the kanji
Well,
thing.
okay, I don't know exactly when it's coming, but
Well, yeah.
what do you mean? Like, where are we at? Like, what are we working on right
What's
now? What's the timeline?
our notes for this podcast say where we're at with development and such.
Oh,
That was
beautiful.
written by you.
Oh, beautiful
That was
notes.
your note.
Oh my god.
I'm asking you now,
Oh
where
no.
are we at with development
What
and
what
such?
was I thinking about when I wrote that? I don't remember. Okay. Well, this week we are still ever battling with the streak system. How many times,
Yeah,
man?
the bane of dev's existence.
Yeah, well, it's largely because of time zones that it has problems. Databases and time zones, man, don't do it. But well, that and a couple other reasons. This time, so we stealthily launched some code. We didn't put out an update. We didn't put out a patch notes or anything, because we're monitoring to see if it fixed it or not. But we we had our streak system set up through Postgres. That was the database we were using. But we're switching things over to Mongo, um, because a lot of reasons. But needless to say, this streak system is so much more elegant than the first one we had built that I have high hopes that it won't be too much longer and we'll never have to worry about it again. So that's
Hey,
one thing that's cool that this week. But that's kind of like we're monitoring that stealth push. Um, but what's coming up next, immediately next, is we're rebuilding our payments service. So like in general, we're working on stability, right? We're stabilizing the platform, putting out quality of life updates along the way, such that um, over time we're switching towards what we're calling NativShark 2.0, which is like the version of NativShark we always wanted. So the UI is going to be better, changed, and the remaining core features of the system are going to be brought in to the platform. But you can't do all that at once, and it's not like you can flip a switch. So you have to do pieces of it at a time in like a order of importance sort of way, and importance is determined by uh, like tax on the system and tax on the user. So like if enough annoyance from users gets surfaced in the platform, then that becomes something that gets shifted up in priority. And if there's enough of a thing that is put in weight or like slowness on the system, then that's another thing that they can increase importance when it comes to what systems are we switching out of the old code to the new code base. But they exist like simultaneously. So the old code base is like Elixir and Postgres and hosted on GCP, whereas the new code base is in Node.js. Specifically, we're using a Nest framework, and we're using Mongo primarily, MongoDB, and we're using AWS. So like both of these systems exist simultaneously, but like pieces of it are getting shifted over. And every time something gets shifted over to the new one, it's like much faster, cleaner, easier to understand. It's improved, and then there's usually like a student nicety that got added. So in the case of the streak system, when we transitioned it from the old one to the new one, it wasn't just that it got should be fixed now. It's also we added a little bit of functionality to it, and that is hidden in your study settings now. You can hide the streak if you don't want to see it. For people like me who don't like streaks, you can now hide it and you won't see it. It's still getting tracked whether you have a streak or not, but you don't have to see it on your dashboard if you don't want to. So
The streak was your idea.
I know it was my idea, but it doesn't mean that I like streaks. I know why they're good, and I know that they can be motivating for a lot of people. But for me, I prefer to see my overall days studied and my overall time studied
Yeah.
rather than my consistent consecutive days, because I'm so inconsistent on consecutive days. But I am very consistent over the long term. So my days studied, my hours studied is great over the long term. But dude, I'll never have a streak higher than like a freaking candle.
Well, you need to have streak hacks like I do, where you just archive every single flashcard. So
Oh
then, even
yes,
if you miss a day, you have no reviews due, so you still get your streak. So, like today, like right now, I have 161 days studied, but my streak is 237.
yeah. See, and that is
I have a perfect streak.
that's broken. It's not supposed to be that way, but it is. So
Streak hack.
you're just
What I
streak
got.
hacking is what you're doing. Someday that will catch up to you, sir. Um, someday, but not today. Um, yeah. For me, I don't archive everything because there's certain things that I am actually trying to learn.
Yeah, well, by the time I see it in my study now flow, I've already read it 100 times during content workflows.
Exactly. So you have a unique perspective there, sir, where anything, even new content, is content that you've already read and reviewed like 500 times before it even gets published.
Yeah. Well, maybe when I get to the most recent content, there is some stuff I might not.
No, when the content flows are fully built out and you're not actually editing and reviewing
Oh,
and
yeah,
writing
even
all the
then,
content,
yeah.
yeah, there'll be content you never even like touched that'll get published, and then you won't be clicking archive on everything. You'll have
Yeah.
some content.
Even with the most recent phase two stuff, there are some sentences that I feel like I want to be able to say that, so I should probably leave it in my cards.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a lot of the reason why I leave stuff in my cards too that I probably kind of am familiar with. I'm like, well, I want to be able to say this better, so I leave it in. I don't
Or yeah, I
archive
want
it.
to be able to pronounce that like that voice actor is pronouncing it, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I mean, as it is, I usually only have like 3 review cards a day because I do archive most of it, but not all of it. Um, so that's enjoyable to be able to have that sort of like I was saying, like it's filling in all of these gaps. So I'm really excited about it overall. Anyway, my story about where we're at in development is the next system that we're working on is a payments service where we're rebuilding the payments service. Right now, it's tightly coupled with Braintree, and we want to uncouple it with Braintree so that it doesn't matter what type of payment service, where it doesn't matter how the transaction happens, NativShark will accept it as a transaction that fulfills the requirements for the subscription to exist. Um, Meaning that we're testing being able to take payments in cryptocurrencies because why not? Some people will
Yeah,
think
let's
that's
do it.
exciting. Some people will hate that. But I say why not?
Well, you don't have to use cryptocurrency. Why would you hate it?
I don't know. Some people just hate the concept, so they hate the existence of it. But don't use it if you don't want it.
Well,
But
yeah, the
it'll be
2020s will be
available.
very interesting for those people.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly when, but sometime in the next couple months, yeah, you'll be able to subscribe to NativShark with cryptocurrencies if you want to. But anyway, that's what we're working on right now is the payment service. So it could be any payment service. It just happens to be Braintree, and then we found this other one that did do like a proof of concept. We're gonna do that. After that are some of the some more quality of life changes. Like I think search is finally gonna come in actually. So I think in May,
Hey,
and then in June we're looking back at the CMP a little bit to fix some of the problems that you've been talking about, that making things smoother on your end, and for content,
mhm.
such that in July, hopefully content can be running at a pretty quicker speed. I know that you're kind of like working roughly on that timeline as well, trying to get people like trained and hired, so that hopefully by July
Yeah.
we have like a nicely chugging along steam engine, as it were.
Mhm.
Um, and then beyond that, I'm not entirely sure. Like I can't really comment on it, but there is a roadmap that we're following. That's where development is at
Yeah,
and
it sounds
such.
good.
Um, but on your end, like with content, we were just talking about this a little bit earlier, but um, one of the biggest constraints there is budget for sure. Like even yesterday, and we were like negotiating. Like I'm like you've got $1,000. You got $1,000 to spend on content creation, and then you're like, well that means it'll take this much time, and I'll be like, oh no, let me go reevaluate. That's
Yeah.
too much time. I don't want to wait that long for new more content. So that was pretty funny. I was laughing while we were negotiating the the budget
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance. Um, the issue right now is that because I'm doing so much of the work to release content, every time I need to go, like, for example, work on training materials or hire someone new or onboard a new person or review the work of someone who's been working, it means I'm not working on content that comes out. So
Yeah,
then it doesn't come out quickly. Um, but it's like, what would we rather have? We'd rather have those people trained correctly and onboarded because then the content would come out even faster and more reliably after that. Which I think for me and maybe for a lot of students out there is kind of a hard pill to swallow sometimes because like I don't want to wait for the content to get faster. I just want content right now.
yeah,
So I'm sort of always internally struggling with the fact that like no, like Nico, don't just go and try to like power through content and release a bunch of it because then you're going to be doing that for the rest of your life without a team that can do it with you.
yep, yeah,
Because Bay and I did that for years, right? So it's kind of like our fallback, and we're avoiding doing that by doing the very hard work of training people to be able to do the stuff that we've been doing.
yeah.
Although it's working out pretty well, it just takes time and
And we're impatient.
effort. Yeah.
It's the same way that with
So,
this question we just got from Kangaroo in Twitch chat. He said, "Any update on a NativShark app? Feel like if people could find NativShark on the App Store, more people would discover the platform." And I agree. That's definitely true. Um, the update on it is the same as what Nico just said. While we could go and like Jacob and I could divert our dev attention towards developing a mobile app right now, and it probably would increase our discoverability, but it wouldn't be a very good app, and it would slow down everything else. So it's like I know we want it now, but it'll be a better thing if we wait and to build it later once we have higher platform stability and the remaining quote unquote core features developed. So the update on the NativShark mobile app is every single day I'm annoyed we don't have it. So I feel your pain. I probably feel this pain more than most of our students, especially because I'm in the support inbox reading people's requests all the time, so it's constantly on my mind. But we're hoping to start on it before the year ends, so it's looking like probably like December we'll start on it. That could change. It could become faster. It could become slower, but that's what we are working on. Unless like the thing that would make it faster is if I change my mind on strategy and we're like, screw it, we're just gonna build it now. But that hasn't outweighed the positives of the current approach yet, right? The negatives of not having it haven't outweighed the positives of having it. And then to keep both of these things in check, right, is again it comes back to budget, right? So our target burn rate is $31,400 or less per month, right? So we have 6 people on our team, and then we have fluctuating number of freelancers that we use, that we work with for content creation. So the entirety of NativShark is being developed at 31,400 or less per month. Sometimes it ends up breaking that a little bit because of random choices we made last year, still having, lingering effects. So we'll have to like pay a bill on like an office that we don't need anymore, for example. But most of that stuff is decreasing. So we're trying to fit the entire operating budget within that amount of money, and we have like 300 and some thousand, $10,000 in our bank account, right? And we're getting new money at a rate of 15,500 MRR, so monthly recurring revenue. So do the math on that, right? Like we have somewhere around like that's like 20-ish months, 18 months of operation without much growth. So we have a growth rate of around like 11%. If we can keep that up, then we hit profitability by December. And then every step of income past profitability we can use towards getting content to come out faster, up until we hit the maximum content production speed that our team can handle, right? But until we hit that number wherein the MRR passes the money going out, we're operating off of we run the risk of like reducing our runway past a safe space. You know what I mean? So like that's the balance that we're dealing with when it comes towards why don't we just like hire more people to build a mobile app? Well, we're fighting against not running out of money. Why don't we just hire more people to build content faster right now? It's like, well, the pipelines aren't fully finished, and if we did, like the deficit is too big, right? The closer we get that deficit, the longer we can go as well. So like even let's say we're only bleeding cash by like $2,000 a month instead of $15,000 a month. Like that's not bad, honestly. Like you can go off that for a while, but at a certain point, with the kind of company that we're building, it's like we need to break that profitability threshold. Luckily, we're making progress every month. We're about to pass 1,000. I think we have like 997 paid subscriptions. So we're almost at 1,000 paid subscriptions, which is going to be a nice milestone, and we should do something to celebrate it maybe.
Yeah.
But
Party.
yeah. Anyway,
Digital party. I don't know.
What do you think, sir? That's the stats. That's like what goes through my
That
head.
was well said, and that is true. Even if we had a ton of money to spend on content, we have to, like you said, get the pipelines working more efficiently.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just ends up being a mess. So we're taking our time training each person that we bring on and improving on training materials so that it's scalable.
Yeah. Like it would be incredible if we hit profitability by December. That'd be absolutely wild and super great, because especially by December, it's like the company in the pipelines for content creation, they'll be ready by then for that, right? It's just it probably sooner than that, but like definitely by then. It's just like lately I've been finding it's hard to be patient.
Yeah, for real.
I want this stuff now. I want NativShark 2.0 whatever finished now, so I can start working on the real dream I have that like I haven't even talked to, like the public doesn't even know about about the real dream I have for what I
Real
want Native
dream.
Shark to be. Yeah. Um, but like I can't work on that. We can't do that because we need to finish this stuff first, and that's great and it's exciting. But like it's just hard to be patient when you can see where you're going and what you want and how much impact it can have.
Yeah. Honestly, 4 phases with a level check is like, I think my current dream, so to speak.
Yeah, that's
Obviously, I share some of the other ones with you, but that's the immediate one that I'm really excited about.
yeah. Well, that's the main. That's the focus right now. That's the thing. That's the thing that I want to look past. I'm looking past that, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
the thing that we are working on, like the Native Shark 2.0 quote unquote is um like the platform is better to interact with. The core features are in there, and all 4 phases are done. Like that's a nice bundle. It's a nice package. Um, you know,
In an app.
which yeah, well, and an app, yeah. That's the thing that we're working towards, and that's the thing that I want to have in my hands right now. I don't want to wait like a year. I don't want to wait 8 months. I don't want to wait 14 months. However long it's gonna take, I want it now. So this is just me complaining and being
Patience,
impatient.
patience, Kyla. Patience.
Yes, yes. We'll get there. It'll be okay.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's fun. It's a good journey.
We are making a lot of progress if you just look back like 6 months or so.
Yeah,
I think you and I often lose sense of like time.
I think so. Pastime perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Even just we mentioned like things we want to get done by like June, July, August. And that feels like a lifetime from now
Right, it
to
really
me.
does. It feels so long, but it'll come and it'll be then when we get there we'll be like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad."
Yeah.
To be sure.
So tell me about this great YouTube video comment that we got.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me see. Okay, so someone commented on a Ty posted a clip from one of our podcast episodes. It was titled "Worrying About Learning Kanji is Useless." So that's the top title of the video, and the video uh, the video was about how learning kanji should not be stressful, and if you are getting stressed about learning kanji, um, it's not effective to be stressed. Like just it'll come to you over time. Learn from context. Um, Reading will come from consistent exposure. So don't worry about studying a kanji in isolation and then basically getting yourself to a position where you don't feel like continuing anymore and like or like feeling overwhelmed by the complexity. Like don't do that because it's not. It's like it's okay to not. You'll be fine if you stay consistent. You'll become literate over time. Right. That was the point of the video. That's what we say. But this beautiful comment said, like, they just like, no, you can't skip kanji and be fine unless you want to be illiterate. If you're not in a hurry, you should learn kanji in context as you read things that are useful. Don't tell people not to learn to read. And I love this comment because well, that's what the video is about. The video is about learning from context over time and the importance of learning to read. So it's a wonderful comment because I can relate with being impatient and just commenting on a video without re- um, actually watching it. But I thought that was wonderful. So just to be clear, so I gotta put this out on the record. It is important to be able to read. What is not required is you don't need to worry about kanji. You don't have to be stressed or afraid of them. You don't need to learn them in isolation. Being able to read them in context is what is important. Context comes from natural sources like native materials or even the native shark example sentences because all of those are written by native speakers. And yeah, that's the key. Learn kanji in context over time, and you'll become literate. You'll be able to read. Reading is important. So I wanted that to be clear in case anyone was confused. Caleb says reading
Yeah.
is important.
I'm with Elsai Kangaroo, who says, I feel like I'm at the point where Japanese is harder to read without kanji.
Yes,
Yeah, totally.
absolutely. That's a really common thing that you find amongst our students, especially. Is I saw a discussion earlier, and maybe it was last week, about the N5, and some people were just kind of discussing the merits of the N5, and
Yeah. And it's hard because they don't use kanji.
that's what everyone was saying. They're like, I tried a N5 practice exam, but it was so hard because they didn't use kanji intentionally.
Yeah, it's super weird the way that it's written.
It is written weird. It's not even written in the way that.
It drives me crazy they don't use kanji on things like that. Why wouldn't you just use furigana?
Well, okay. Here, some person said, um, well, it's written that way because like, well, that's like how children read. And I'm like, no, it's not even written in the way that children read. They made it up. They made up a new way of writing Japanese for JLPT N5.
Yeah. And sometimes they have like kana only for kids too, but I think that's also dumb to do.
I agree, but like even that, what I'm saying is like the words that they use for the JLPT N5 are not the same ones
Oh
that you would
yeah.
see written in a kid's book that has no kanji. So the JLPT N5 is written using words that would always have kanji because they're words that you wouldn't even see in a kid's book
Oh
without the
yeah.
kanji, without furigana. That's what I'm saying. So like even that is not the same
Mm.
as what is shown in kids books when kids books use only hiragana. They're doing it with specific words on purpose. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a whole nother
Yeah,
topic
it's so
though.
much easier when they use kanji though.
It's kind
Just
of
I don't
yeah,
know, just logically it just doesn't make any sense to do it that way.
yeah.
Because you could put furigana above the kanji.
Dude, it's a system that was made a long time
Yeah.
ago that was it just hasn't been updated because yes, if you were to think
Yeah. Maybe
mod
maybe the tech back then they couldn't put furigana, so they just kind of stuck with
no,
it.
I dude, no, listen, I literally think it's just because like when this was made, people were like, yes, kanji is hard. We should simplify. That would make it easier for foreigners to learn. I literally think that's what it was. Like
Yeah.
I don't think they meant it on purpose, but literally it feels like they're like kanji is too hard for people to learn, especially for foreigners. They're dumb. Therefore, like I don't think that was their intention, but that's the vibe it gives. This is too hard for you. Let me simplify. They're there now.
Yeah. A
Um,
lot of times,
it's not.
like a pet peeve of Ray's is that Japanese people dumb down their Japanese when they talk to non-native speakers.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we'll see like a student or a person talk about like, oh, my Japanese person doesn't say that. They say it like this or something. And like they'll read it and she'll be like, no, they're dumbing down their Japanese for that person. They don't talk like that to other Japanese people. And like, just talk to us normal, please, everyone out there.
Yeah. It's a weird phenomena. Not everyone does it, obviously, but some people do. The thing is, though, is I think this is
It,
just something that
yeah,
happens
I don't
in.
know.
I think this is a thing that happens a lot of times for learners of a language. Native speakers, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
dumb
Well,
down their
except for native
language.
speakers of English don't do that much at all, at least not in America.
Really? I feel like they do in a really rude way. At least the way I've experienced it.
Well, they expect you to understand English is the thing. So they might get angry at you for not understanding it.
Yeah. I just think it's a complex sociological issue.
Could be,
The
yeah.
the like the intersection of native speakers of a language and learners of a language, like it's a weird sociological area.
Yeah. We imagine that you're like a service worker in the US and someone comes up to your place of business and you ask them a question, they don't understand you because you're speaking English, they don't understand English. Your thought is like, oh, this person doesn't understand English. That's okay. Whereas I think in Japan, the person sort of blames himself. Like if you don't understand Japanese, they feel like I'm in the wrong because I don't understand English, even though
Mm.
we're in Japan.
Yeah, I feel like that is probably a pretty common reverse. way of thinking about it. Mm.
And for some people, that feeling is so extreme that they panic that they don't know English, even before they find out that you can actually speak Japanese.
Yeah. I want to say though that that is the thing that happens a lot more in Tokyo than it does here.
Could be.
Yeah, like I people typically here, I don't know, they just expect you to speak Japanese for some reason versus in Tokyo. Cuz like in Tokyo, I've had that experience a lot what you just described. Or people will try to use English a lot there. But here like that rarely happens.
Could be. I
Interesting.
don't know. It's happened to me in a lot of areas of Japan, but I've spent most of my time in Tokyo, so
Yeah. It's not that it hasn't happened here, it's just that the frequency of it happening is
yeah,
like
it's the context too, right?
hugely
Like
yeah, yeah. Context too.
if I go to the gym, for example, everyone expects me to understand Japanese. Because why,
Why
how
the
in the
hell are
world am
you
I
in a
going to the
gym?
gym if I don't speak Japanese?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they even notice that they're thinking that, but like I've never had someone try to speak English to me at the gym.
Mm.
They just like people just talk to me like normal.
Yeah. I was in the elevator like 2 weeks ago coming home, and this delivery man was like walking into the elevator, and he just was speaking to me in Japanese, just like gave no thoughts as to whether or not I would understand him or not. Um,
Yeah.
but normally like people like I don't know, they usually just won't talk to you. So like that was interesting. I'm kind of used to people being quiet, and thinking about going back to the United States. I'm like, are people gonna talk to me? Don't talk to me,
They are.
please.
You're gonna get chatted up
Please
all over the
please
place.
don't talk to me. I enjoy not being spoken
You
to.
gotta be social in the US.
Oh no. We'll see.
Yeah, I am a little bit shocked when I go back to the US and like you're standing in line at like a coffee shop or something, and the person behind you like says something to you. Like it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like,
Does that
are we
happen?
talking? I don't know you.
Is that
Oh, that
right?
happens to me a lot.
Is that
Yes. Yeah,
real?
I get people talk to you.
Do you think that's like
Like you order a coffee and they like ask you how your day's going and stuff. And like
do you think that's like a regional thing in the US
it's the
too?
culture. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I just don't remember that happening that much in Seattle. But like there's this thing called like the Seattle freeze or whatever. So like maybe people are just less social there. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe you just don't come across as a very
Yeah.
nice person to talk to.
That's fine with me though, because I would prefer to not be spoken to. So maybe that comes off. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe you've got
Oh,
bitch face or
yeah,
something.
maybe. I should practice before I go back for sure. Make sure I'm up on my don't speak to me vibes. I'm slightly kidding, by the way. I actually don't care that
You
much.
should be more social.
I actually don't care that much if people speak to me. If you randomly see me, you can speak to me. It's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, Nico, can you tell me a little bit about why? Side note: I really like how we just like all of a sudden switch topics on this podcast. It's pretty great. We're just like
We do.
new topic. Here it comes. Get ready. Okay. Can you tell me why the phase two lessons are um the way that they are versus phase one lessons?
That's a
Like,
loaded question. But
yeah, so as a biased preface, I enjoy the format of the phase two lessons. After this was discussed, I went and read them, like picked up four of them, and I personally felt like they were very crisp compared to the phase one lessons. Like the automatopoeia one I read yesterday, for example, like I enjoyed the lesson, but like it was like this long.
I'll
Um,
bet it was, yeah.
Whereas the new phase two ones, they're like so crisp and feel to the point, and I was really enjoying that. But anyway, can you talk to me a little bit about the difference? Because clearly you're aware of the difference between the old way of lessons being written and the new way.
Yeah, they're succinct and yeah, that's a seriously difficult question to answer. But let's I'm trying to decide which way I should approach explaining it because there are so many possible ways that I could explain it.
Hmm.
But I remember years ago, I would talk about how I'm trying to write this lesson and explain this thing, and I would be telling They about this, and her answer a lot of times would be like, "Why are you even trying to explain that?"
Hmm.
Because she thought it was pointless to even mention it to a student because she thought I was like trying to over explain something. And I
Hmm.
sort of just like brushed off that comment and thought like whatever, like she doesn't get it because she's a native speaker. Is what I used to think.
Okay.
And then she started planning the units, and she'll write this like have the sentences with their context for a lesson, for example, and then she'll have like one or two sentences explaining what the whole topic of the lesson should be. And it's actually enough information to write a good lesson.
Hmm.
And I'm often just like, wow, that is all you really need to know this topic, isn't it? Like, I don't need to go on a tangent about how like I thought it was this and it's not this and like
Hmm.
so there's that is that she's just good at concisely explaining a Japanese topic, and she's the one who plans the lessons. So there's that to it. The other thing is that like we had a student tell us that they wish there were more, for example, comparisons of two sentences. Like we have a sentence that's like a natural one with the context, and then a more textbookish alternative of it right beside it, for example.
Yeah.
And why don't we do that? And there's a couple reasons. One is the lessons would get really long, and the only reason they'd be getting long is because we have a whole bunch of unnatural sentences in them
Hmm.
for no purpose other than to have unnatural sentences that books have. So instead, we just have natural ones with context that is relevant to that sentence. And then when we're trying to teach a grammatical structure that requires a textbookish sentence, that's when we use those ones.
Hmm. Okay. That makes sense. So,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think if you can't explain something succinctly, maybe you don't understand it well enough.
Hmm. I think so. So what you're saying is all your previous explanations of Japanese have been unsuccinct because you didn't understand it well enough?
Or I didn't understand what a topic of a lesson should be. And maybe we have one big long lesson that is multiple lessons. Or we have one lesson that's like the core topic of that lesson does not require a lot of explanation. But we also go into a bunch of like side branches and tangents about things related to the topic that are not the topic of the lesson.
Hmm. That makes
So
sense.
you don't need it in your core studies right
Right.
then. If you just want to improve your Japanese so that you can go to the next unit and the next phase.
Right. Okay. I think then the big difference is before even we did not understand the extent to which connected like iterative Japanese builds on itself. So it was this feeling of well, let's just teach this here just in case, versus like, well, we don't need to because well, it's going to show up later here and it's not required for this, so let's not pollute it. Let's just give what is needed, and then as long as you stay consistent, that thing will be covered.
Yeah, it's like we're a comprehensive platform. We want to teach all the things. Oh, I gotta teach all the things, and you try to put them all in a lesson. It's not how it's supposed to be done because it's an iterative system, like you said. So it's like we will teach all of the things. What piece do we need to teach now so we can teach that next piece after it,
Mm, that makes a lot of
is what
sense.
we're doing. Yeah.
I think that's
Which means that the lessons can be succinct and they can be crisp as you describe them.
yeah,
And they're just better that way.
yeah. I think that's why the phase two content feels so good. Now to someday going back and fixing all of phase one so that it's like that too.
Yeah. Ray talks about it all the time. She really wants to redo phase one content.
Mm. I wonder.
We will. We'll get there.
Yeah, I'm glad that it is as good as it is though. Like at least it works.
It teaches very well, I think.
Yeah.
It's probably not as easy to complete a full study day, than it is in phase two.
Yep.
Like the content you learn is very valuable and it's good, but I think it does require a little bit more effort than we would like it to get through is the
Yeah.
problem.
That's what the best part about being iterative building, like learning, growing platform. I don't like maybe I don't know other platforms that are working so tirelessly on building the best version of themselves with their content for learning Japanese.
Yeah, it's very hard to build an iterative system, I can tell you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun though.
very, very hard. But it gets easier the more you do it, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'll consider that a good explanation for the difference between the two.
The other one is just that like context really drives the examples. And I've heard some people think that the context is too much for the sentences.
Hmm.
And to that, I'll say maybe a little bit sometimes, because I do sometimes have find myself editing stuff that's been translated that I think they don't need to include all those details in the context. Like a lot of times we'll shave them off, and maybe we didn't shave off all of them every time.
Yeah.
Um, but most of the time, the reason that the context is there and written in that specific way is because that sentence probably is natural in that specific context. And if you went and made it a little more vague or shorter,
Hmm.
maybe there's a less clear link to that sentence being said in that type of context to
I
where
see.
it might be unnatural, one or the other. And I cannot fully express how much it occurs that a sentence is unnatural in a certain context in Japanese.
Hmm.
We have a very hard time teaching writers to write context for sentences because these are native speakers. They
Yeah.
cannot write them that are accurate. Like that's not actually what you say in that context,
Yeah. I mean, it's
word
hard.
for word,
I remember when we
like
started coming up with
character for
the
character.
I remember when we started coming up with the context based approach, and you and I were trying to do it for English, and like it is a struggle often. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't matter if you're a native speaker or not. It's like weird how that happens. Like when you're speaking like fluidly like we are now, words just fly out of their mouth, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. But then when you try to like teach it, you have to like wait. That's not natural at all. Why did I want to do that? It's interesting.
yeah. I think another thing is that most of the people who find themselves thinking the context is overkill might be studying below their level still
Likely, yeah, it's
because we don't have a
understandable.
level check yet, and they maybe have even read some of our old content on NativShark. So,
Sure.
like in that case, yeah, it would feel superfluous sometimes because you would be able to guess the context just reading the sentence. But for a student who's actually going through the iterative process, they probably need that context to understand that sentence because they've never seen that sentence before or anything like it.
Right. Yeah. Mm.
But yeah, determining the details that go into context is an interesting problem that we have because in the target language, which would be Japanese in this case, like we'll often have lots of details written in the context because we really want the translation to be accurate. And we've just found that the translators are more likely to write an accurate translation if they have lots of details in the context. But when they translate the context to English, we want them to remove a bunch of those superfluous details. So
Mm.
we've been working out content standards for that kind of thing, like how to do it, what to remove, what to keep.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's really cool. I've seen it improve in real time. Really, you know, to get to where it is. Like, there's parts of the system and our content system now that I like. They're really good, and maybe they'll change in the future again. But like, they're the best versions of themselves now that they've ever been.
Yeah. Oh, another question we got is like they want someone wanted markers for like rude language or highly formal language, for example. Um, we had a lot of very lengthy meetings over a year ago about what our formality markers should be.
Yeah.
And we did play with the idea of like rude, um, super formal, things like that.
Yeah.
In the end, we had formal, casual, textbook formal, textbook casual. If you're actually speaking, like it's probably formal or it's probably casual. And the reason we ended up doing that is because we never, ever, even once could find an example where it makes sense to mark a sentence as like just that extreme formality.
Right. Like super formal or super or rude.
Yeah, because this is back before we even had context, also. So that
Yeah.
is part of it. But things are rude in certain contexts, but not
Mm.
rude because of the words in it. They're rude because of the person who is speaking to the other person and the meaning of what they're conveying and the way they said it.
Right. Mm.
So we're not trying to capture the societal implication of what's being said. We're trying to capture the formality of the words.
Yeah. From like a grammatical perspective, almost like a language,
Yeah,
or like a functional language perspective.
yeah. It's not about like how much respect is being shown to the other person. It's about how respectful the language itself is.
Hmm.
So not even respectful, how formal. Respectful is a
Yeah.
better word
Again,
for
that
that.
gets back
But yeah,
towards the societal implications of it.
yeah.
I think one thing that would.
Which is why we don't use the word polite. We use the word formal for the
Yeah.
same reason.
Exactly. Because what is polite? Even.
Yeah.
Yeah. It changes. I think in the answer to that is something that we have talked about in the past before, which is adding a like a little piece to sentences that allows you to add um like let's say, I don't know, we've played with different names for it, but one of them was like nuance note or something like that, where it lets you add on a little bit of modification to the sentence, where it's like you can write a little cultural thing on it. And also this was there for the case of like some of the audio is difficult to hear, or it's like it's difficult to hear the way that a word is pronounced sometimes. So they wanted the ability to have like a little flag on this, is like, hey, sometimes students often mishear this word. Listen closely, that kind of a thing. Um,
Yeah,
that's useful.
something could
Yeah,
exist.
yeah,
Um, I'm not sure how it would work for formality because it's so subjective a lot of times too.
yeah. I can't think of how it would work
Japanese
either.
person A thinks this is too informal to be used in that context. Japanese person B uses it every day like that. So,
Yeah, I think that's like I
or
think
vice versa.
that's
Yeah.
sometimes I think there are certain words that happens to, and I think that's when it might be useful to point that out, where it's like some people will think this about this word, some people will think this about this word. It's kind of neither, but that's what people
Yeah,
think.
but you say like point this out, right? But most of the people who are thinking one of those things, they don't think other people will disagree with them. They think that's the way it is.
Yes, but like you as a learner of the language, trying to understand how people think about the language might be
Yeah,
useful.
but I'm saying we're teaching it. So how are we supposed to guess what all of the people's perspectives
Yeah,
are
that's a
of
challenge.
native speakers?
Yeah,
I mean, we
and
can try and we can get guesses here and there, but we won't get all of
and
them.
because
We
this is a
can't.
hard question to answer, you get Genki. There, that's what you get as a result of people being like, that's too difficult to answer, so let's just make a bastardized version of the language that's no one ever speaks, but at least it's like impossible to
Yeah.
uh be offensive except for when it is, but we'll ignore those times.
Yeah. You get textbook casual and textbook formal only. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's not described as like that either. It's usually
No,
described.
no, it's there's just pretend that it's natural.
Yeah, and then you yeah, sound really really strange. But like that's I want to. I mean, I don't know because I haven't written these books. You've done more in that space than me, but I feel like it happens because it just becomes difficult. So they're like, well, it's difficult, so we'll do it this way. Or like you when you teach
Yeah. Well, I mean,
English.
also just the companies making the books are the same type of companies that would make, a sentence for a dictionary. And in Japan, you write things the way that they are supposed to be written, not the way that people talk.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
So,
Like you've run into that with when you're teaching English
like, I
to
have an editor
Japanese
I work
people.
with, and we've never asked him to help with the Japanese content because I honestly don't think he could fathom how to write things the way people speak because he's been working for like 30 years in the industry of writing things the way people write, not the way they speak.
Yeah, yeah, that's the challenge that we're trying to address. It's weird, man. Like, okay, because to try to just like explain the context or the content like advantage. Like, let's talk about it from like an investor perspective. Like, unless that investor or individual from a business perspective is learning Japanese to a high level and they've used our content versus other content, like they don't actually understand it. And it's like, no, our advantage is that we don't have all of these weird ways that people want to teach. Like that's the advantage.
Yeah, and even like it's the opposite of that. That if we had a person on our team that was like, I have a certification from the Japanese government to teach the Japanese language, and I've been working at a language school like in
Yes.
Tokyo for 10, 25 years or something, they would be like, oh, great, this person has a ton of experience. They're gonna kill it with this business. That's awesome. Whereas if we're hiring a writer or a
Yes.
voice actor right now, that's a humongous red flag if that's in their resume.
Yep.
We take chances on people like that sometimes, but usually it just doesn't count. There's too much unlearning that they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. It's like the content moat for us is that we're not teaching things the way that people have been teaching it for 30 years. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Um not like I don't know. There's a certain amount of value to be found in the way that things have been taught for 30 years or more because sometimes it's like, yeah, that's fine. But a lot of times it's that you can see where it hasn't worked as a result of it being taught that way for so long that it
I
provides
think
you
it
yeah,
helps to be aware of it. Yeah.
right. So it's not to say that like we don't know how things are taught or why some certain things are standards. It's just that we're trying to teach the language, I guess, from a first principles perspective, which is like, okay, this is how it's taught. Does it need to be taught that way? Or like, why is it taught that way? And then does it need to be? Like, that's the question. It's like, what is it? Why is it? Does it have to be this way? If no, then what are
Is
the
it
alternatives?
helpful to
Yeah,
be this way?
yeah,
Is it detrimental to be this way?
yeah. Sometimes that's the reality. It's actually worse. It's just interesting to me, like, why is language education specifically so difficult?
Yeah. I don't know.
Mm,
It's fun though.
it is, yeah. That's what we think about all the time. That's what we're
All right,
about.
should we wrap it up?
Yeah,
I
for
hear
sure.
a baby crying in the distance. I should probably go be a father.
Oh, and Ty will really enjoy editing your audio.
I know there's like lots of crying going on.
I haven't heard it because the Discord is filtering it, but Ty doesn't have
Yeah,
that.
it's filtered.
Yeah. All right. Well,
All
it
right,
was
Ty.
a bit scuffed in the beginning, but hey, we pulled it through and we had a solid episode.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for sticking with us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll chat next week.